Have you ever noticed that it seems like you continue coming up to the same challenges and you're met with the same things, even though you probably have great coping skills, you've done some work on yourself, and it doesn't seem to matter. It seems like you just keep coming up to the same challenges, whether that's with the same thing or it's showing up in different places in your life. So if that's something you've noticed or you're interested to hear more, you're going to want to hang out through this whole video and hear what I've got to say. So this is about how to conquer instead of cope, how to really outgrow your triggers. And this is a pattern that I have noticed. And so I wanted to bring it here to you today. And before we jump in, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. And if you're new to me or my work, let me go ahead and give you a quick intro. So, my name is Audra, and I am a therapist and have expanded into coaching and mentoring for science driven women who really want to bring harmony to their health, their marriage, and their heart centered work and business. And you're also probably somebody who is spiritually curious. You may be solidified in that, or you may still be having some confusion or uncertainty around that. And what I've noticed is with science driven women, we often want to logic our way through things, right? And even if you don't resonate as science driven, right, this is just something that's really been conditioned in us as humans and within our society that we want to use logic and reasoning. Now, as somebody who has always valued and continues to value science as a trained and licensed therapist, as somebody who's gone through the education system and really cares about that. Like, we are not throwing that away, right? We want our logic and reasoning. We want to be able to consider that. Where usually the women that I'm working with, and if you're somebody who identifies as science driven, you have no problem in that area, right? Are you've had a lot of practice in that, and that's probably a go-to, right? And so this is really about, in addition to that, we want to really grow in that other part of us, which is really our intuition, our right, where the spiritual part comes in, where if that doesn't resonate as much, where our internal guidance system is how I like to refer to it. That's where this is coming in. And without that, and just going to some of the science, sometimes we can get stuck in the loop and we can get stuck in just kind of coping, and we're not actually conquering, we're not actually growing through these things. And so this is a lot of the work that I do inside my programs and what I'll be bringing here for you on YouTube. And so definitely click subscribe and stay tuned for future content if this is something that you want more of in your life. So let's go ahead and dive in and talk a little bit more about how you can start outgrowing your triggers and not kind of getting stuck in that little coping loop that we often hear about and we're often providing in therapeutic spaces. So one of the biggest patterns that I've noticed as humans is we have the tendency that we want to avoid our triggers, right? And this is not a bad thing. We're not saying, we're not placing judgment on that. We're just bringing awareness that this is something that's part of the human experience. And, especially when we are really stuck in like our human is what I call it, but really like our mind. You may hear this as like your ego. There's a lot of terms that we can use for it. So I don't want you to get stuck on that. But just recognizing that part of our experience as humans is we tend to avoid our triggers. We avoid the things that are uncomfortable, challenging, sometimes even painful. and really ruffle our feathers, right? They get us out of sorts. And so, of course, we want to bring understanding and compassion to that. Like, of course, right? When things feel feel difficult or triggering, that right, it's not usually like it doesn't feel great, right? Where it is to our benefit and to other people's benefit, and for us to really recognize this pattern and learn the skills and the process of changing that for ourselves for by actually practicing being able to face the things that are uncomfortable and that we don't like. So, some of the ways that this shows up, right, you might notice that you are blaming other people or a situation, a circumstance, um, the economy, the government, the list goes on and on. But just one of the things that we do when we're actually avoiding our triggers is we're blaming other things. Um, we often will make excuses, right? And again, this is, well, actually, I'm calling you out a little bit, right? We've got to call ourselves out. That's the whole point, right? If we're not able to do that, we will get stuck in coping and we won't be able to actually conquer these things and move on and continue growing, in our experiences and growing in our life and all the areas, that we want to improve, whether that's your health or your marriage, your business, your job, whatever it is, right? These things show up in all of these places. And so, again, it's natural that um, our human mind, right? Our brain is really there to keep us safe and to make sure that we survive. And the way um, that our brain works and the way that we have evolved as humans, our mind is going to tell us, well, like this might not be safe, it's uncomfortable, don't do it, right? And that's how, in a very quick nutshell, that process happens where we find ourselves avoiding things. And if you're with me here at this point, or this message is even resonating, then you likely know, this is not the first time that you've been through this process, or you've heard somebody talking about it, and you know what it is that I'm referring to. If this is brand new for you, then you can stick around, continue to watch videos and content that I'm putting out, and it will all kind of start making sense if that's something that you really want to be on this growth journey and continue to conquer the challenging things in your life. Again, I often work with very science-driven, very successful women who, one of the main things that I've noticed in all of the clients that come to me, whether was in my therapy practice or now right in the coaching and mentor space, the one thing that we really have in common, and even what I see with science-driven and really educated or successful women, is that they have they have a drive to continue growing, continue learning and changing. And so you'll know what I mean if that's you. And so with that, right, we have to be able to develop the resilience and the skills to work through things when we get triggered. And so let me see here where I'm at in my notes. So really the first thing, right, is to even know that this is happening, which you probably do. And then it's actually to know, really start working to build and strengthen your self-awareness so that you know when it is you're triggered, you know what's actually happening, and you're able to recognize yourself in that pattern. And so, when sometimes that awareness comes when you're already amidst that situation and you're already kind of in that zone of, could be blaming or making excuses. You could also have a different response of kind of shutting things down or going into that self-judgment. Shame can come up, a lot of different things, but just being able to recognize when you're in that situation. The more that you practice this, the stronger your self-awareness will become. and the better that you will get at it. So if this is something where you're recognizing amidst the situation or even after, um, and this is something I always work with clients on, especially when they're having some internal barriers to actually doing the things that they want to be doing. It's building that self awareness so that it keeps getting sooner and sooner. And so then you're able to catch it before it's even happening, as it's happening, and you're quickly able to work through it. And so, that process is different depending on where you're at. And so just kind of taking inventory where you're at and where you usually start to recognize that. Is it after going into that pattern and cycle? Is it amidst it, or are you catching it, as it's kind of happening, or knowing when you're in that different frame, that different state that you're in? And so this is something that's really about continual refinement. And as you are growing and learning and doing new things, this shows up in different ways, right? Where that's where we want to change from the coping is kind of cycling through on the same things versus being able to conquer through that trigger. And then you're moving on into new levels and new heights of the things that you're doing. And things, might continue to show, or they're going to continue to show up, but it's totally different. It's, you'll know the difference if you're coping as you're like, as I started this video saying, the same thing is happening over and over, right? And so you're not able to cross that hurdle. Let's say you're working on your health and let me think of an example. One of the examples is right with like losing weight or having, being able to really optimize the foods that you're eating. You're wanting to get healthier and you're like going through the same cycles. Same thing with women who are maybe they're really wanting to be more connected with their body. They're wanting to have better menstrual cycles. And I mentioned those two because I've got a couple of programs that are that I'm just about to get started with that are kind of around those areas. But it doesn't matter. I work with women in all different areas. So you can apply this basically to anywhere, anything that's going on in your life, right? So that might be in your business, et cetera. Just really knowing, again, where you're at. So let me kind of get myself back on track here. One of the other things that happens is, let me see here. You're stopping short of kind of the going through the process. And so this is when we're avoiding a trigger or we're not really actually working through it. We're getting caught in the loop because we won't allow ourselves to feel the discomfort, to really metabolize the emotion that's coming up, or the sensations that are happening in our body, or right. So that's one of them, right? Is when we're stopping short because we're not able to really work through what's coming up emotionally or physically in our body. And so another one is when we're stuck more in the mind. So that self-awareness to the beliefs that we have and the story that our internal dialogue is saying. And so we just continue believing the lies that we're telling ourselves, the patterns, the old patterns that at one point, the whole reason why we probably or we do have that pattern was for protection or for right, to get us through that situation. But now we need to recognize when we're kind of stuck in that same story, that same belief or loop, and really recognize it. And this also can feel uncomfortable because these are right patterns or habits, conditioning that we have, have had going on for a while. And so these are a couple different ways of how that shows up. And so it might feel easier in the short term to just do the same thing again, where it's actually more painful long term because we keep looping, repeating the same mistakes, repeating the same things. And what happens is we'll continue to encounter those same situations, those same lessons until we learn them. And so you may notice it specifically in the same area of your life, or it shows up in different ways. But if you really start doing this work and strengthen your self awareness, it's the same thing looping over and over. And so that's really what I want to help you even recognize here from watching this video. And this is what I really help women do in my programs. And I do have something I just want to share with you for a few minutes is my Rise and Radiance 5D roadmap experience. This is I believe it's like a 90 minutes, but it is a experience that's going to really help you see where you're at with this. And I go through and explain more about the lens that you're coming from, as well as the frame. And you'll know what I'm talking about from, when you go through the experience. But this is how we're going to build our self-awareness to know consciously what lens we're coming from, and also the state of our frame. And so that's where I was talking more about our body and emotionally, and it goes a lot deeper than that. And that's what I get into in this roadmap, but really helping you and giving you a framework for how you can view this, right? Because sometimes this stuff feels a little intangible, and what we want to do is make it practical. And so what we want to combine, and this is really something really that's kind of unique to my work and something that you're not going to find everywhere, is being able to combine both of those, right? So we need to see what is the what's kind of the unseen, the intangible, and feels like sticky for a lot of people. That's one of my best strengths. And so really helping you recognize that, and then being able to ground it into practical application. And so you actually know how to apply this to your life and really see results and changes. And so if that's something that interests you, I'll link that in the description box for you. That's the 5D roadmap. And then, like I mentioned, I have a couple other programs that I'm running, and through the roadmap, you'll get more information on that. But specifically, helping women to, if you're doing anything with your health, so related to food and body, periods, hormones, things like that, I do have some programs running for those too. And so I'm not going to share a whole lot in this now, but if that's something that interests you, you can certainly reach out to me, and then you can definitely get more information at the end of the roadmap experience. But I really want you to consider checking that out if this is something where you're really trying to build that self-awareness and you are ready to shift from that constant coping and just looping to really conquering through these things so you can move on and work towards not only the results that you're wanting in your life, but really feeling at peace and in harmony with your life as you are working on the goals that you have for yourself. So thanks for tuning in, and I will again, I'll link all these things in the description box. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. I would love to hear from you in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.